What if the person you trusted the most with your health was secretly responsible for your death? For years, Harold Shipman appeared to be an ordinary family doctor. Patients welcomed him into their homes, trusted his advice, and placed their lives in his hands. But as suspicions grew and investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a pattern that would reveal one of the deadliest serial killers the world has ever seen. Tonight, we're examining the shocking case of Harold Shipman. Harold Shipman was a British general practitioner, widely considered one of the most prolific serial killers in modern history, and he was linked to 250 deaths. Shipman was born on the 14th of January 1946 in Nottingham, England. He was born at Nottingham City Hospital and grew up in a place called Beston, a working class council estate in Nottingham. He was the middle child of three children. He had an older sister and a younger brother. His mother, Vera, was a controlling influence in his life and often controlled who he can talk to and where he can go, and controlled his entire schedule, giving him strict rules. His mother viewed her family as superior to their working class neighbours, which isolated Shipman from meeting new people and gave him few friends. His mother favoured him over his siblings, and he had loads of pressure put on his shoulders to be successful in life. He went to local schools in the area, including a high pavement grammar school, and his school friends remembered him as quiet and aloof, who was arrogant and didn't fit into social groups very well. When Shipman was just 15 years old, his mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Shipman was the person responsible for looking after his mother when she got sick and watched doctors give her morphine to ease her pain before she died in 1963, and this gave him the ideas he would use on his patients' future crimes. After his mother died, Shipman concentrated on medical school. His mother wanted him to become a doctor, and he wanted to make her proud, so he fulfilled her wish. He gained admission into Leeds School of Medicine, where he started in 1965. He was not a star student and failed some exams early on, but eventually passed his medical finals. Fellow students thought he was arrogant. Shipman met his wife Primrose Oxtoby in late 1965 during his first term at medical school. Shipman was living in an area of West Yorkshire called Wetherby at the time and met her at a bus stop. From that moment on, they started to sit next to each other while she was on her way to work at a department store. Within a few months of first meeting each other, Primrose fell pregnant. Because they were going to have a baby, they decided to get married on the 5th of November 1966. They had a quiet wedding with very few guests. After the wedding, Shipman and Primrose's first child was born on the 14th of February 1967, and she was a girl. The marriage caused a family rift because Primrose's parents didn't approve of her getting married and having a baby really quickly, and they virtually disowned her. Shipman had to balance his medical training and becoming a father and found things tough. Shipman never socialized with any of the other students, and while they were out drinking and partying, Shipman never did. On April 21st, 1971, his second child was born around the same time as Shipman was starting his career as a doctor. They named him Christopher, and he was the younger brother to his first child, a daughter, Sarah, who I mentioned earlier. And they went on to have another two sons, who they named David and Sam after that. Shipman graduated from medical school in 1970. He found raising a family as well as studying tough, but he was determined to make it work. Immediately after graduating, Shipman and Primrose moved with their children to a place called Pontefract in Yorkshire to take up his first job role as a pre-registration housing officer at a local general infirmary. In the years after his graduation, his behaviour started to take a dark turn, and by 1974, while working, he developed an addiction to a painkiller called pethidine. He began suffering with unexplained blackouts while he was working. His wife tried to help cover up the addiction by driving him to work, but eventually his job found out and they forced him out in 1975. After he was dismissed from his job, Shipman faced criminal charges and medical investigation, but a series of lenient institutional decisions allowed him to return to work in medicine, and that escalated his undetected killing spree. A psychiatrist recommended that if he was to lose his job, then that would be catastrophic for his mental health, so he was given a warning. In 1977, Shipman and his family moved to the area of Hyde in Manchester and joined the seven-doctor Donnybrook practice. He spent 15 years there and always came across as a deeply dedicated, hard-working family doctor, and he was very popular with his patients. In 1992, after clashing with his fellow medical partners, he decided to leave that job and go it alone. He left to set up his own private practice on Market Street in Hyde. He worked completely by himself, which made it easier to cover his tracks. Shipman heavily manipulated the doctor's practice computer record system. Before or straight after unaliving a patient, he would log back dated fictional symptoms like chest pains or stroke to create a paper trail justifying an imminent death. Between 1992 and 1998, Shipman unaliving peaked. He unalived roughly between 30 to 40 people per year. During this time, he would visit people at their homes they intended to be the most vulnerable people and administer a lethal injection of medical grade heroin. You might know it as diamorphine, and he would sit with them while they died. He would then leave only to discover the body later or tell families that their loved one has passed away peacefully in their sleep. Because he was a trusting doctor, he personally signed the death certificate saying they died of natural causes. If the family wanted a cremation for their loved ones, Shipman easily required the co-signature from a neighbouring doctor who signed off the paperwork of a professional trust. By 1998, a local undertaker by the name of Alan Massey noticed that Shipman's patients were all dying at an unusual high rate, and he would become suspicious. He noticed when his patients were dying, they were all fully dressed at the time and they all looked peaceful rather than being ill. Massey raised concerns with the local GP and the police. The police conducted a brief investigation into it. They looked at Shipman's records, but failed to cross-examine his computer entries or toxology reports, ultimately clearing him. Shipman went on to unalive three more women immediately after the investigation closed. On the 24th of June 1998, Shipman unalived 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, the wealthy former mayor of Hyde, to secure her £386,000 estate and forged her will, clumsily leaving everything to himself. Mrs. Grundy's daughter was a practicing solicitor, and she noticed the blatant forgery and the erratic signature. She, she demanded the police reopen the case in September 1998 after Mrs. Grundy's body was exhumed and examined. Her body was found to be full of high levels of diamorphine. Police then searched Shipman's home and practice, and they found the typewriter used for the forgery and medical records that had clearly been altered on the computer. Shipman was then arrested and formally charged. Between 1999 and 2000, the Crown Prosecution Service chose to try Shipman for 15 counts of unaliving and 1 count of forgery. These cases represented the strongest forensic and circumstantial evidence, particularly involving exhumed bodies that tested positive for lethal doses of diamorphine. On the 31st of January 2000, following a 4-month trial at Preston Crown Court and 6 days of jury deliberation, Shipman was found guilty on all counts. Mr. Justice Forbes sentenced Shipman to 15 concurrent life sentences with a whole life order recommendation, meaning he would be in prison for the rest of his life without the possibility of parole being granted. He was transferred to HM Prison Frankland and later to HM Prison Wakefield. Between 2001 and 2005, an inquiry started, and because he had only been tried for 15 unalivings, the British government launched an investigation to uncover the true scale of his crimes. These cases represented Shipman's inquiry, officially concluded that he had unlawfully unalived 215 patients between 1971 and 1998, though the estimated total is closer to 250. The inquiry revealed major flaws in the NHS. It found the process for registering deaths was flawed, and other doctors blindly co-signed cremation forms without examining the bodies, and the Home Office failing to monitor the prescription of controlled drugs. The inquiry also heavily criticised the Greater Manchester Police for not investigating properly when they looked into the case, allowing Shipman to unalive more patients. Throughout Shipman's entire time in custody, he refused to confess or express any remorse, maintaining a stubborn silence regarding his motives. On the 13th of January 2004, a day before his 58th birthday, Shipman died by suicide and hanging himself in his cell at Wakefield Prison. Reports later indicated he committed suicide so then his wife, Primrose, could secure his full NHS pension before he reached retirement age. As I say this last bit, I say it with my deepest respect to the victims and their families, but Shipman's oldest victim was 93 years old, and sadly his youngest victim was only 4 years old. It's shocking that he committed these crimes on anyone, but to do it on a small child is beyond evil. I hope his families have found I hope the families have found solace and comfort after all these years. Rest in peace to the victims of Harold Shipman's. Thank you for watching, and let me know any cases you want me to cover, and I will do my best to go over it in as much detail as possible. Have a great day and see you soon.